What are the best boards and maps in board games? From thousands of games out there, we've chosen the most inspired game maps that are integral to the game. Some of these have withstood the test of time and others are relatively new, but they all share one feature. Their design is unparalleled. Welcome to Legendary Tactics.
To make the top 10 best game boards list, each of our selections needs to be inspired, thematically linked to the mechanics of the game, and absolutely integral to the gameplay.
There are some honorable mentions that almost made our cut. They include Axis and Allies, Brass Birmingham, A Game of Thrones, the board game, War of the Ring, Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar, Dune, Watergate, and Root. So I'm here with Nato today to take you through our top 10 picks.
Number 10 is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. What is so great about this map board? Well, it isn't really the look of it. There are plenty of better looking game boards out there. But this board is unique and interesting because of how it is used in the game, like an actual map. There are no spaces per se, no hexagons, no zones. It is used like a real map in that there are locations that you can visit where characters live and work and play. And so it brings the map to life, which brings the game to life.
Let's go to number 9. So modular boards really haven't been around that long. And in fact, let's put the question out to our audience. What's the oldest board game that you know of with multiple board pieces, tiles, or cards that you can think of? So HeroQuest did this in 1989, almost like a Gloomhaven. 007 James Bond in 1985. Survive did it in 1982. But there's lots of modern games like Spirit Island, Mage Knight, and Gloomhaven that do this. But the first really big ticket game that figured out how to maximize its replayability and to semi-randomize the strategic importance of different locations on the board was the Settlers of Catan. It's not an overly complex design, but using hexagons that puzzle together combined with a number value placed on different hexagons adjusts the relative importance of a hex. And that really set this game up for the massive success it continues to enjoy. So love it or hate it, this game board revolutionized how game designers thought about building their boards.
Survive Escape from Atlantis is a classic game, and this status is in large part because of the unforgettable map and the island tiles that are used with it. The game begins with an island in the center and ends with almost none of it left above the water's surface. The island tiles sink slowly each turn, bringing forth creatures, whirlpools, and other events. At every point, players must interact with the board in a way that really stands out. This game board appealed to my imagination as a kid and as an adult.
Absolutely, me too. That's a great pick. Number 7. There's a reason that Risk is the most popular mass market wargame out there. The board forces complex interactions and strategic decisions, and there's a tug-of-war feel to how nations ebb and flow in their power. And it's actually very mathematical how this game could be calculated. Like many real-world map games, this one may seem to be limited by actual geography, but it's the connections and the interrelationships of the territories that provide the game's foundational mechanic, and that's territory control. The brilliance of this game comes from how the strategy shifts at different player counts and how it evolves every turn based on what territories your opponents occupy. It certainly has survived the test of time too.
If you're getting a value from our content, we appreciate it if you would take a moment to stab the like button and join our channel by subscribing. Now on to number 6. Twilight Struggle is one of the greatest games ever made. Beyond the mechanics and the cards, the map board is an example of how design can influence the gameplay. Each of the countries depicted are not really connected geographically, but politically and culturally. You can have neighboring countries, for example, that do not have a connection between them, and this elevates the game from a historical standpoint.
And if you haven't figured out that Nato really loves Twilight Struggle yet, you can check out his over 100 videos that he's making on the game. Let's go to number 5 now.
Very slowly.
We've already included 2 games with modular boards on the list, but there's one more that has proven to be not only one of the greatest games of all time, but also a game that evolves based on how players build the solar system around Mechatol Rex. The placement of the tiles becomes part of the game, and this game is designed purposefully, beautifully, and functionally. It's Twilight Imperium, 4th edition. The diplomacy that emerges each game comes directly out of how players move their units on the game board. It's a true 4X classic that has inspired many clones, and it's absolutely worthy of a spot on this top 10 list.
While the original Pandemic game board is a traditional world map with balanced interconnections, we see that the board is a foundation for the legacy games. These maps are revolutionary in how they are discovered and how they evolve, adding stickers and rules that govern the map as the game progresses. Without giving spoilers away, the game board is essential to both the sense of discovery in the game as well as how the gameplay flows. Each gaming group will end up with their own unique map.
And by the way, if you feel like we're missing any games on this list that deserve to be here, be sure to add a comment below with your rationale for why your pick should be in the top 10. On to number 3, Scotland Yard. And for our number 3 pick, one look at this map and I think you'll agree that the design is mind-blowing. I can't imagine how much playtesting went into this design, and I never once remember playing this game and feeling like the map was the reason I lost, either as Mr. X or as the detectives. I love that the map links thematically to the gameplay. It's a race to disappear into London side streets or to discover Mr. X. It's tense for both sides. The routes are planned in such a way that the game is very impressively balanced. You always feel like you have a lot of options, and as a result, it plays well with kids, adults, family, and friends.
High Frontier has a map that is worth the price of the entire game. While it looks overwhelming at first, it elegantly captures and brings together the elements of distance, speed, and astrophysics in a seamless and aesthetically pleasing fashion that allows the players to focus on the bidding, the negotiating, and the cobbling together of spaceships. Some people have said that they would frame this game board and hang it on their wall, and I don't disagree with that sentiment.
So we're on to our number 1 pick. And when we first talked about making this video, the number 1 game board of all time jumped immediately to mind, and it hasn't faltered for me in this spot since. It was released in 1959, and while the board, I admit, looks like absolute garbage at first blush, and while it took me even a few decades to acknowledge and embrace the absolute brilliance and balance of this game board, I can now say that the design is as close to perfect as a map can get. If you haven't played this game much, you might not realize there's a stalemate line that runs directly across the board. There's 17 centers on each side of the map, but 18 are required for a player to solo. So the result of this clever design is that when one player looks as if they'll win the game, the other players have to unite to stop them. And this necessarily forces diplomacy amongst the players. People who were once mortal enemies suddenly need to unite to prevent a loss and to force a stalemate. Like chess, if you know you can't win, it's possible to prevent your opponent from winning as well. Many games have used European maps, but none have even come close to the beautiful symmetry of diplomacy. If you disagree with my number 1 choice, I'm always up for a good berating in the comments, and of course, if you agree this is the best game board of all time, flattery is great too.
We appreciate you checking our channel out. If you want to check out more on diplomacy, we've interviewed world champions about how to win with each nation. Links to those videos will follow. Thanks for your time.